What's up guys, and welcome to the 500 subscriber question and answer video. Now we got a ton of questions to go through in this video, way more than I thought we were going to have. So let's just get right into it without any further ado. Alright, so question 1. What is your relationship with the actual game? Did you ever compete in a tournament? So this is a pretty fun question. In terms of being a player, I was never a great player when I was younger. I was pretty young when the game came out, so I was too young to realistically understand all the strategies and everything properly. So I played a lot on the local level, like in school, or a few local card shops that I used to go to as well. But I didn't ever get into the more competitive side of things. And by the time I was starting to get interested in that, the game was becoming very expensive, like around Phantom Darkness and Teledad, all that kind of stuff. So then I didn't really have enough money to play the top decks, even if I had wanted to. So yeah, pretty much the answer is I enjoyed playing the game a lot, and I still do, but I was never seriously into the competitive scene. PlayStation or Xbox is the second question, or Nintendo, just to be inclusive. So my choice is actually Nintendo. I've always been like more of a handheld console guy than a home system, so I played the Game Boy a lot. Nintendo DS, 3DS, stuff like that. I don't play a lot of video games anymore, but if I was going to, it would probably just be Nintendo games at this point. So question 3, if you could explain the defining moment you fell in love with Yugioh, when would that be? So that's an interesting question. I would probably say, like, originally the way I got into the game, probably the same as most people, was watching the anime. I don't remember what the first time I ever watched that was, but I definitely got into that when I was a kid. And then playing the game, I had older brothers, so I would see them play, and I'd always want to try and beat them, so that was a big motivation for me that kind of got me more into the game as well, made me try and understand the rules and everything like that. And for collecting, as opposed to playing, I'm not really sure, to be honest, when the first time that I really got into collecting was. It was probably around like 2007, 2008, but yeah, I couldn't say it like more defining moment than that. So next up, how to tell the difference between Euro and NA Ghost Rares. This is kind of an interesting question. To be honest, it's quite difficult to say. There aren't generally like big differences between them. It's more just about knowing the little differences in colors and the card stock. If you look at the back, that's often actually a pretty good way to tell, because European print cards always have little chips on the back edges and corners, whereas NA Ghost Rares or any other rarity, they're cut pretty nicely, so if they're packed fresh, they won't have any kind of wear. Rarest item in my collection is the next question. I would say my Wavy Guy, the Dragon Champion First Edition. I've only seen 2 copies of that card ever in First Edition, so I don't know how many are out there exactly, but I would definitely say that's the rarest thing I own in terms of like the number printed. Do you own any Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency? No is the short answer. I'm not like one of those guys who's super against cryptocurrencies. I think they're interesting, and if I was looking for a way, like a high risk, high reward kind of strategy to make more capital, then I would definitely consider Bitcoin or something like that. But in general, I'm pretty happy with where I am in terms of like net worth, capital, all that kind of stuff. So I don't really feel the need to go into a whole new high risk area. And the fact that Bitcoin is very volatile does like somewhat put me off as well, because even though in the long term it's always kind of gone up, if it happens to go down a lot at a time when I want to make a big purchase, then I just think that would be really inconvenient for me. So that's another reason. Any hobbies other than Yu-Gi-Oh? Yes, I have a lot of hobbies. I mean, I enjoy sports, really everything, but I would say the main one would be music. I do a lot of singing, playing piano, other instruments as well. So yeah, music is a big part of my life. Favorite area of Yu-Gi-Oh and favorite item in my collection. Favorite area of Yu-Gi-Oh would definitely be like OG, Duel Monsters. That's kind of what I have the most memories from, and the cards that I enjoy the most all come from that era as well. Favorite item in my collection. That's a tough one, to be honest. I mean, the Wavy Gaia I mentioned earlier, that would be up there. My European Blue Eyes that I pulled myself, BGS 9.5, again, that's something that I enjoy looking at a lot. It's hard to say like just one item that I enjoy more than any other, but probably one of those two or something similar. Do you think Yu-Gi-Oh prices will increase, or has it reached its peak? So this is, I knew this question was going to come up as soon as I made the Q&A. It's kind of just the standard meme that you always get asked anytime you're doing videos on a TCG. At the moment, prices are actually going down, so it's kind of an interesting time to ask it. But yeah, short term, I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh is going up that much. Long term, it's impossible to say. No one has a crystal ball, but I think there's still a lot of potential. Especially on like rarer items, lower pop items. I could easily see them still going a lot higher than the current record prices. Man. Next question, do you or do you not know about the bird? Yep, alright. We got it. Everybody knows that the bird is the word. I'm a Family Guy. Next question, what is your most nostalgic card? That's a good question. Probably something I pulled myself. So again, that European Blue Eyes would be up there. That kind of thing. There are some commons as well that I remember like playing a lot back in the day and trying to make something good happen with them just because I liked the name or the artwork and stuff like that. A Man with Wichat from Pharaonic Guardian, that's one that sticks out for me. Pretty random card, but I just, for some reason, that card like would always feature in my decks when I was younger. Thoughts on vintage unlimited card values in the future? So I assume we're talking about like original print here. I think unlimited, I mean, earlier this year it was getting really overvalued. Some of the prices were crazy. It's kind of come back down again now quite a bit. Some cards like LOB Blue Eyes, they were way up at $6,000, $7,000. Now they're way back down to, I'm not sure exactly, maybe like $2,000, $2,500. I think like unlimited is an okay investment, but I would always look at it more as a collection thing than an investment thing, because realistically it's always going to be less safe and bring less good returns than buying first edition. Thoughts on collecting or investing first print? Okay, so this is like a similar question as well. So I definitely think like buy the original prints rather than the reprints, whatever era you're looking at. GX maybe is a bit different because some of the reprints, like when they reprinted them in the 5D special editions, they actually have really nice like print quality and ultimate rare patterns and things like that. So in that sense, like they could be just as interesting as the originals. But definitely for the Duel Monsters era, I would always recommend making sure you're buying an unlimited print, an original print rather than a reprint if you're looking at buying unlimited as an investment. And if you're wondering how to tell the difference, there's a lot of videos out there on it already. Great content, by the way. Thank you. What's your favorite booster set? What is your favorite card except Blue Eyes or Dark Magician? Favorite booster set is one of the first two. In terms of like the cards inside, I'd probably say Metal Raiders, but in terms of how much I enjoy collecting it, I would definitely say Legend of Blue Eyes because it's got all different variety going on. You've got wavy and glossy, first edition, unlimited, faded cards, all that kind of stuff. And favorite card, definitely favorite artwork would be Change of Heart, which you could probably tell from my channel icon. Other than that, my favorite card, I'm not too sure. Yeah, nothing really comes to mind in particular. What are your thoughts in regards to Beckett's population report? All right. In general, you guys probably know I prefer Beckett to PSA, but I'm not going to say anything to defend their pop report. I like the fact that there's a lot of information in it. Like you can see the individual records when each card was graded, all the subgrades, everything like that. But it is so hard to access, so hard to like look through. Beckett's website in general is a mess, and I wish they would do something about it, but they never seem to. How does it feel to abuse Timmys? This one was from a friend of mine on Instagram. Honestly, I've got to say, it probably feels good, but I don't feel like I've had much of that experience. If anyone's abused Timmys, it's probably those people who were selling LOB reprint Blue Eyes for 5-6K a few months back. That was insane. What's your thoughts on newer Yu-Gi-Oh cards versus older cards? Will current era cards eventually be sought after years down the road? Will Yu-Gi-Oh be dead, or will they still be worthless? I think the current era cards are a lot better than they were a few years ago. In that era, like after they got rid of Ghost Rares and before they added Starlight Rares, I think there's really not a lot of potential there with investing or anything. None of the cards have high rarity. Some of the artworks are okay, but when there's just 0 chase cards in a set, rarity-wise, it's really hard to see why anyone's ever going to want to go and collect them. The current era, I think there's more potential. You got all the Starlight rares, like these cards they'd be putting out with much lower print runs. It's never, for me, like what I would choose to go down, but I do think those have potential, yes. And some sealed product as well. I think you're not into OCG stuff, but if you could get one OCG card for free, no matter how rare or expensive, which one would it be? So, yeah, when you say I'm not into OCG stuff, I don't collect OCG stuff. To me, it's like a whole different hobby. There's really not a lot of overlap between like what you would collect in the TCG and the OCG. And like the same rules don't necessarily apply in terms of like what would be a good investment or a bad investment and all that kind of stuff. But I do have a lot of respect for OCG collectors, and I enjoy looking at a lot of different OCG cards. If we're talking about like I can have any OCG card, it would probably be that T3 price card, Red Eyes with the alternative artwork. That looks incredible. On a slightly more realistic level, probably a Jump Festa Blue Eyes, or maybe a G3 Dark Magician Girl. And then if we're talking about like a card that I might actually go and buy at some point, that would be like an SM51 Blue Eyes, because it looks awesome. How much can you bench? I haven't been to the gym for a long time, just putting that out there. I like to keep in good shape, but more by like sports and stuff like that than actually going to the gym. I want to say my record when I was doing the gym years ago, it was probably like 70 kg, maybe 75, in that region, nothing too crazy. With the Euro print run problems of white corners and side damages, do you think the Crimson Crisis 5D's first aid booster boxes on eBay right now for 1K, 1.5K are a good purchase? I don't see any NA first aid box on the market. Do you have any tips or ideas on where to look besides waiting for Facebook, eBay, etc. for a listing post? Okay, so for sealed product like this, anything after the original era, I wouldn't really say there's much difference between European and North American. Maybe for some sets, like in GX, European's worth a bit more, but at the end of the day, they're kind of the same product. So especially if you're just looking to keep them sealed, like I don't see any difference in value personally. I had no idea they'd gone up that much, if that's the actual value. I mean, that sounds like a lot to me if you're just asking me like how much is a Crimson Crisis box worth. But to be honest, I don't keep up to date with sealed product prices that much beyond GX. So it may be the right price, I really couldn't say. Whether it's a good buy at that price, yeah, I'm not too sure. I think there's probably better uses of $1,000 than a Crimson Crisis box. Where to look for them? Yeah, I think you pretty much just gotta wait. I mean, there are always people who have these boxes, and if you know the right people, you could go and ask them. But realistically, if they're not putting them up for sale actively, they're probably gonna ask more than you could get them for otherwise. With your factory faded versus sunbleach video, would it not be possible, because the culprit is UV damage, to shield specific waves or portions of the electromagnetic spectrum to target magenta specifically and keep the yellow? What would a normal UV light with the card indoors do to the colors? I'm not a scientist, okay? So I can't say anything for sure on this question. This is getting a little bit beyond my level. I would say there's probably no way to manipulate it so that the yellow on like an old Yu-Gi-Oh card fades after the red, because it's like always going to be that UV thing that's causing the light to fade. But yeah, I'm not a scientist. If there's something else you can do, like some crazy other technique that might make the magenta fade first, I don't think so, but at the end of the day, I couldn't rule it out of the question. All right, and last question for the first page. I think we've got 3 pages to go through total. If you had to give up all your cards but 5, what would those 5 cards be? Do you have any card that you would just never sell regardless of the offer? So yes, 5 cards. Again, Wavy Guy is going to be in there. My European Blue Eyes. After that, it gets a bit harder, to be honest. I might put my faded first edition 9.5 Wavy LB Blue Eyes in there as well. There's some raw cards that I probably wouldn't want to sell because I pulled them myself. But yeah, those last 2, honestly, I'm having a bit of a hard time deciding on like 2 other cards, because I feel like after the first couple, there's a whole tier of, let's say, 20, 30 cards that would be pretty difficult to let go of, and I'm not sure exactly like which ones they'd have to be. I'd need longer to think about it than I've got right now. And in terms of like the card I would never sell, that would be the European Blue Eyes, because that card just has a lot of sentimental value to me. I pulled that out of a box I bought in probably 2008. That box cost like 60 bucks, 60, 70 bucks. So it's just a lot of good memories. And well, we had some technical difficulties there, sorry folks. But yeah, so we got to the end of that question pretty much. European Blue Eyes would be the one that I wouldn't let go of. And the last question for the page, do you collect any modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards? Pretty much the answer is no. I think some of them look alright, some of them are pretty cool, some of them are pretty rare. I think some of them are even somewhat difficult to grade, which is kind of funny. Certainly compared to like modern Pokemon cards where everything is super easy to grade. But I do not collect any myself. It's just not for me. There's stuff I'd rather put my money into, especially when they're as expensive as some of the modern cards are. But yeah, I'm, again, not saying there's no potential. I can understand why other people might want to collect it. It's just not for me, personally. Alright, moving on to page 2. Still a lot of questions to go at this point. What do you think the best modern booster boxes to invest in are? I'm not an expert, to be honest. If we're talking like semi-modern products, there's some things I like. Yugi's World First Edition, Legendary Collection, I think is pretty cool. More modern than that, like Toon Chaos First Edition, I'm sure will always have some value. The sets with Starlights in, some of the earlier ones especially, I assume have a decent long-term outlook. But yeah, it's not really my thing. I don't feel like I can give the best advice on it. How to pick out raw cards to grade from eBay. This is a long topic, to be honest, and it's not really something that I can like give you an answer to in a video. I feel like it's more when you have a lot of experience looking at pictures, you start to realize like what signs to look out for in the pictures in terms of whether the card is actually clean, whether it has issues. Looking at the seller's reputation is definitely a big thing as well. If they've got a really dodgy rep, or if they're new to eBay, then you probably can't trust what they're saying as much as if they have a long-standing reputation as a seller. So yeah, it's a mixture of things, really. What is your plan now that BGS shut down all of their lower tier services? So as soon as they announced that, I sent out another sub. I pretty much don't have anything on me at the moment that I would want to sub, like in the near future. And moving forwards, I'm definitely going to try and focus more on picking up like high-end cards rather than low-end cards, so that they're still worth subbing even with like the premium turnaround cost. And any other cards that I pick up, I'll just keep on the side until BGS open again. It's not really that big a deal for me, especially since they did announce it in advance so that I had time to send stuff out. What do you do in real life? Man, this is where we need a bit of that Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Is this the real world? Is this just fantasy? Because I don't do anything in real life, if you want to ask, like other than Yu-Gi-Oh. Obviously I have hobbies and stuff, but yeah, in terms of a job, I never had anything else. Yu-Gi-Oh has been how I've made all my money. It's definitely been very good to me over the years. I don't have much else to say. I probably do plan to get a job at some point if it's something I enjoy. But at this point, in terms of making money, there's really no reason for me to do anything other than just what I'm already doing at the moment. Congrats. Should be 5k subs. Thank you. Question, why do you think PSA commands such a premium over BGS? 9.5s and 10s are both genuine copies with similar rating scales, yet PSA 10s go for almost double the price. Alright, so this is pretty common question, I guess. I think it comes down largely to like brand value for one. PSA has the bigger market share. They have they've been around for I think about 10 years longer than BGS. So that's definitely a big thing. There are more collectors out there. So even if the BGS collectors are happy to like pay as much as PSA collectors, it still wouldn't mean you get the same price going on because there's just a lower level of demand for the BGS slabs. I do think maybe the fact that it's a 9.5 grade rather than a 10. I think a lot of people overstate it, to be honest, because in other industries, on other grading scales, like it's never necessarily to 10. I think for coins, the scale goes up to 70, for example. So you shouldn't just assume that because like 9.5 isn't a round number, that can't be highly valued. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff going on that means that they're lower valued, especially for cards with lower subgrades. It does also vary, to be honest, with like what card game you're talking about. I would say in Pokemon, BGS 9.5s have much worse value than Yu-Gi-Oh. For Yu-Gi-Oh, if you have a very high subgrade, it's 9.5. As long as you have a bit of patience, you can usually get about the same as a PSA 10 price. Why, in your opinion, the PSA pop report of first edition starter deck Yugi Kaiba Dark Magician Blue Eyes is so low? So this is a pretty good question. I would say it comes down largely to the packaging of the cards. Print quality, they have some issues as well, like centering, but the packaging is just really hard to open without damaging the cards. So I think very few people in the past, like if you gave that deck to a kid and they opened it, like 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to ding one of the corners or damage it in some other way right out of the pack. So it's very, very rare to find a raw copy that is good enough for a 10. And I think that's also why there's a big difference, even within the starter decks, between the Dark Magician and the Blue Eyes. Because in recent years, a lot of people, not so much now, but like 2-3 years ago, were opening the sealed starter deck Kaibas, hoping to get PSA 10s. So that pop report went up a lot. Whereas the starter deck Yugi Dark Magician was never really worth opening. There wasn't a lot of profit, even if you got a PSA 10. So I think that's why fewer of those got opened, and now there's fewer PSA 10s out there. The pop definitely could go up a lot if people graded more of them. There's still thousands of sealed decks out there, but the odds are never in your favor, so that's why it doesn't happen, and that's why the pop report remains low. But I think it's also why you still don't see like a crazy high price for them, because there's that awareness that the pop could go up if more people open the decks. That's just how it is. Thanks for always keeping it real and super informational. You deserve to get to 500. Now for some questions. Thank you, by the way. What was the most you've ever spent on a single card, graded or raw? I mostly see you do vintage old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Are you into the new stuff? What's your opinion on new sets and their future directions, rarities like Starlights? How do you feel about it? Okay, that's a lot of questions there. Most I ever spent on a single card. Normally when I do big deals, it's trade, to be honest. And a lot of my big cards I bought a long time ago as well. I think the most I've ever spent on a card, at least in a part cash deal, was like $10,000 on my Faded First Edition Blue Eyes. Off the top of my head, I think that would be the biggest number. And then, so yeah, I'm not into the new stuff. I've gone over that already. And yeah, I've kind of gone over how I feel about the new sets and Starlights and things already. I think they're cool. I think it's great that Konami added back some rarity into the modern sets, some chase cards, different rarities, stuff like that. Definitely like a breath of fresh air after the previous few years. What kind of card holders can you recommend for Yu-Gi-Oh cards? So this is, I don't know, it's kind of a hard question to answer because it depends what you're looking for. I think binders are good, just like the standard 20-page binders that all different companies sell nowadays. They keep your cards safe and they're easy to look through. If you want them like on display individually, then like top loaders are fine. Card savers I probably wouldn't recommend because they can kind of warp over time and dust can get trapped inside and cause damage and stuff like that. There are those one-touch cases as well. It really depends what you're looking for. There's a lot of good storage options nowadays. Very different to back in the day. Which card would you like to see come out with its unscented version for the Lost Art promotion? So I haven't actually kept up with the Lost Art that much, so I don't know all of the ones that have come out. But definitely for me, the number one card, just in terms of I really like the artwork, would be Final Flame. Which, if you've never looked at the Final Flame OCG artwork, go and have a look at it. It's pretty awesome. How do you suggest a new collector start and continue to build his or her collection? More expensive cards first versus cheaper cards first. So my advice to anyone starting out is always to buy stuff that you enjoy, whatever that might be. But also, if you're starting out with not that much money, I would say definitely do not go and dump it all in one card, or like one kind of card. Because then, if you happen to bet on the wrong horse, which can very easily happen when you're starting out and you don't have that experience of kind of understanding rarity and supply and demand and everything like that, then you can be pretty much stuffed for a long time. So spread it out to begin with. It doesn't necessarily mean buy lower value cards, because you may have a lot of capital, so you can buy multiple different kinds of high-end cards. But yeah, I would definitely say don't put all of your eggs into one basket when you're starting out. Sorry folks, the camera cut out again. So we were on, how to buy old PSA 10 graded cards, since some don't seem to be gem mint. I definitely relate to this problem, the fact that like some older slabs especially, I mean, to be honest, I see it on newer slabs as well, but you get PSA 10s which have edge wear, corner wear, bad centering, whatever it might be. Look at the pictures, I guess, is the only advice I can give. In theory, PSA have their value guarantee, so if the card doesn't deserve a 10, you can theoretically send it back to PSA and ask for a refund to the grade that it deserves. I know that that's very difficult to actually get money out of them in practice. So it's kind of, in a way, more of a guarantee in word than it is in deed. So yeah, if you're worried about that kind of thing, look at the pictures. Always ask the seller for more pics if you're not sure. Beyond that, there's not really much else you can do. I wouldn't, like, some people talk about various like certain numbers giving you more confidence than others. I don't know if there's no truth in it, but I would definitely say that's an overrated theory. All right, where's the next question? What is the best way to buy raw vintage Yu-Gi-Oh cards near mint? There's a lot of ways to buy raw cards. Instagram, eBay, even like TCG Player, troll into card market. Those last few are definitely like higher risk, I would say. You've got a higher chance of buying near mint and not receiving near mint. From eBay, you at least get pictures, so as long as you can see what you're buying, then if you've got some experience in like knowing how to tell the difference from pictures, then you should be set. You should be like, pretty good to go on that front. Yeah, I don't think there's much other advice. It really comes with experience. Where do you suggest to get cards like Ghost Rare First Edition Stardust from other than eBay? Places I just mentioned again. For something high-end, yeah, probably Instagram would be your best bet if you didn't want to buy from eBay. But to be honest, you're always going to get the most supply on eBay. So I know some people don't like eBay, but to be honest, for buying on, it is the best platform, bar none. When did you first start collecting? When the game came out, pretty much. If we're saying like more seriously collecting and like worrying about first edition and condition and stuff like that, then yeah, like around 07, 08, like I said earlier in the video. Hey, congrats on the 500 subs. Thank you. Great content and an insane collection you've got. Appreciate it. I've got a few questions. First, what are your thoughts on PSA Beckett grading standards over the last few years? Have they gotten more strict in my opinion? All right, so let's just cover that first before we go any further. This is a question that a lot of people, or like a topic that a lot of people bring up. And I feel like everyone falls on one side of the debate or the other. They either say like, yeah, grading standards have gotten stricter, or they say, no, it's all a conspiracy. It's always been the same. To me, the answer is actually like neither of those. I think the reason that a lot of people in TCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon think that grading standards have got harsher is because of how the hobbies have become so much better recognized over the years and the values have gone up. So if you were subbing a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card like 10 years ago to PSA knew nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards back then. They'd grade real ones, fake ones, everything. And you would realistically just send them in the bulk option, which was, I mean, I don't even know how much that was back then, probably like $6 a card. So you get like most likely not a senior grader looking at your card, and they would also most likely not spend a lot of time looking at it or take it very seriously because Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards were just worthless back then. Whereas nowadays, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon, these cards are worth a lot. You can't send any high-end cards through the bulk service. You have to use like Express or Super Express and declare a high value, or you get upcharged. So it means that all of your high-end cards will get looked at by senior graders and like with a lot more attention because they'll actually be thinking that they're grading a worthwhile piece of cardboard. And because of that, they're also like much more likely to pick up on issues, not let little things slip through, and all that kind of thing. So I think that is the reason. That's like why it seems that they've gotten stricter. I don't think standards have changed, not significantly anyway, but the values of the cards have changed, and that means that the way they've got graded by PSA and Beckett have also changed. So second, what are your thoughts on Asian English cards and the future demand for them? I don't like them for any of the original sets. I mean, there's a few cards which are kind of interesting, like you get reverse foil secret rares from like LOD, MFC kind of sets, which you don't get from the TCG. From GX, I think they're pretty cool. Some of them are already worth a lot, and others, like a lot of the Ultra Ultis, are actually worth less than the North American versions now, which to me is pretty surprising because they have easier pull rates than like hobby boxes do. But even so, they're pretty awesome cards, pretty low print runs, they look incredible, so I think they're decent buys. The demand is definitely lower, they're always going to be pretty niche, but I do like them. That's my opinion. Third, man, your collection is so crazy. When do you start collecting? What was your Yu-Gi-Oh! Journey like? There's no way I can answer this in this video with how much time we have, but I did actually make a video recently, like a couple of months back probably, on how I built my collection, so feel free to go and check that out if you want like a more in-depth answer, like a look into some of my journey through the hobby. Where do you buy or sell most of your cards? eBay and Instagram. Those are really the only two places that I sell on. Yeah, that's about it. Short-term Yu-Gi-Oh collection goals for sealed products and graded slabs. Not a lot, to be honest. I'm in the process of finishing my original 11 sealed first edition boxes, so sealed is pretty much done at this point. And graded, I have a few more wavy first edition LOB cards that I need to upgrade from 9 to 9.5 for my registry sets, so that would be out there. What is factory wax on the back of a card exactly? How do you get rid of it before submitting cards for grading? So I think it actually varies from cards to card. Like some, I think in sports, for example, waxing is a big thing, but that often comes from the pack rather than the factory. With Yu-Gi-Oh cards, the waxing strip you get is definitely from the factory, and it's definitely from when it's moving around on the machines. Which, if you haven't seen a video of like how these cards move around in the factory, they get moved around insanely fast. It's like faster than you can even see virtually. So if there's a bit of excess wax on any of the sorting machines, I assume that the cards would pick it up very easily. And the reason that it's kind of scratchy is because they're moving so quickly, like I said. So yeah, I don't know everything about the process. Now, can you get rid of it before submitting your cards for grading? I know a lot of people have tried a lot of different things, also in sports, for getting rid of it. I would always say never try any kind of substance on a card. I just don't think it's worth like altering your card for the sake of getting rid of a wax stain. Especially because with Yu-Gi-Oh they're on the back anyway, so they don't affect the eye appeal that much in a way. I do not know of any foolproof way to get rid of the wax without damaging the card. I've never heard of it. Maybe one day something will come up, but to be honest, those stains are pretty like stuck on the card, so I don't really expect it to happen. What are your thoughts about using consignment services like Pwcc for buying, selling in the Yu-Gi-Oh category? I think it's a good thing. Kind of something that wasn't really a part of the hobby when I started coming back into the game around 2016, 2017. I probably saw the first ones on Pwcc maybe 2018. I remember Amu, the Yu-Gi-Oh Mint, for anyone who remembers him, was like one of the first guys to send through Pwcc. But yeah, bottom line, I think it's a great addition to the hobby. It kind of adds legitimacy to sellers who don't have much of a reputation themselves. If they want to actually sell some of their cards, they can get a much wider buyer pool by putting them on Pwcc, and it gives buyers more confidence as well. So yeah, it's really just a good thing. I don't think there's anything much else to say there. Been collecting for the past few months. Have a few of the newer reprint legacy cards. Are they worth collecting, holding, possibly grading, or dead end for collecting unlimited reprints because they're always printing? Reprints, I would say, they're not a great hold. The more time goes by, the more people start to realize how to tell the difference. And like as you said, potentially they're still printing them. They haven't actually printed any for a few years. I think the last time was 2018. And newer reprints will probably look different if they do make them again, because they have a different copyright date at the bottom of the cards now. So maybe they've made all of the Legendary Collection reprints they're going to make. I could believe that at this point. But the bottom line is there are a lot of them out there. They look pretty bad compared to the originals. They don't have any of the same age or like nostalgic feel that the originals have. So there's a huge number of reasons why I would recommend dumping your reprints and buying originals. Yeah, I don't think there's much point in hanging on to them, to be frank with you. Alright, and getting onto the final page, we're actually pretty close to the end of the questions now. We've definitely been going a while already, but yeah, we'll be done before too long. How do you prefer to store your graded cards? Do you like to keep any in specific on display? Thanks for the content, man. It's all really helpful, and even when it's not applicable to me, it's still interesting. Glad you're enjoying the content. I store my graded cards mostly just in like units that stack them neatly. I don't really have much room to display cards, or like desire in general to put them up on display, so I don't have any of those fancy display cases you see people have, but I think they're cool if that's what you're looking for and you've got the space to do it. Yeah, in general, my concern with graded cards is just keeping them safe, stopping them getting scratched, and that kind of thing. Why BGS not PSA? I've made a video on this before, like my thoughts on BGS versus PSA. I use both companies for grading for different reasons. For my personal collection, I definitely favor BGS. A lot of that is A, because I sub a lot of my own cards. BGS handle cards, I mean, I wouldn't even say fantastically, but definitely better than PSA in terms of like damaging them. And a lot of cards I send off, I really just don't want to see them come back damaged, whatever happens. I do think the cases are a lot safer as well. PSA cases have a lot of issues. They often rattle around. There's some cases where the card can get trapped in the side and then get damaged inside the case. So that I would just find way too stressful for holding a large number of PSA cases. So yeah, those are pretty much the main two reasons. I think PSA cases in a way display better without the inner sleeve, but it's not worth the risk to me because of how that can also mean that the card can get damaged inside the case. Relationship with win cards at Raw. So we're old friends. We go back a very long way. Some of you probably know we run an eBay account together, so that's kind of like the main way we're linked on here. We've done a lot of business ventures in the past together, things like that. We live pretty close. Yeah, that's, I guess, about all there is to say. Thoughts on the Platinum Blue Eyes and Scalping. So this was another question which I knew was going to come up based on just like the timing of this Q&A. As with most modern things, the Platinum Blue Eyes is not for me. I think there's some potential there, but at the same time, the fact that it's not even definitely going to be limited to 1,000 copies is pretty worrying based on how like loose Konami is with just like reprinting anything that they can get more money out of. I think the whole thing was a massive cash grab in the first place to charge like $1,000 for, I think it's 50 or $60 worth of silver. Pretty shameless from Konami. And then all of the scalping, yeah, people buying it out. I heard in Europe some big like power sellers were offering bounties of hundreds of euros for other people to secure them extra copies, because you could only order one per person, but obviously you can pay someone else to order another one for you to their address, and there's no problem with that. So yeah, there's going to be, I'm sure, all sorts of drama still. There's already been a ton. It's been a complete mess with like Konami's ordering system and everything as well. It's kind of fun to watch, to be honest, from like a neutral perspective, which is pretty much my perspective. I have no interest in ever buying one. I think they look pretty cool, but it's just not for me. Yeah, so it definitely brings out the worst in the kind of community and different flipping mentalities when something like this happens. Would you consider yourself more of a Yu-Gi-Oh or a Pokemon collector? I feel like whoever asked this question hasn't watched a lot of my channel or Instagram or anything. Definitely more of a Yu-Gi-Oh collector. I mean, I have some Pokemon stuff, and I have a lot of nostalgia for Pokemon as well, but that's more the video games. That was like my thing with Pokemon. I never got that into collecting the cards, and that's pretty much stayed the same the whole time, ever since. You've had bad luck both with PSA and Beckett. Do you have a preference at this point? Yeah, I've definitely had some bad luck with both of them, but as I just said, yeah, Beckett would still be my preference. I don't think they're a great grading company necessarily, but for the things which I care about the most, which is, I guess, to do with keeping cards safe and not damaging them, they definitely come out on top, in my opinion. And that is the number one reason for me as someone who submits their own cards. I think if you're buying graded, that argument kind of goes out of the window, because once it's in the case, nothing can really happen to it that'll stop it having that grade. Even if it gets damaged in the case, it's still got the grade at the end of the day. But as someone who's submitting cards, submitting to PSA is just infuriating. You get so many 9s that you don't know why they're not 10s. You get 10s which you think should be 9s. And you get the damage as well to cards which you'll never be able to get the grade which they originally could have. So that's like why I find PGS, I guess, a lot less infuriating to submit to. How do you come up with your name? Schnitzel plus... What a question. No, the name is something that's followed me around for a long time, to be honest. I couldn't say how I came up with the word Schlost. It's been a long, long time since that word first came into my life. It's followed me around on various platforms as a username, stuff like that. I find it hilarious, to be honest. One of the main reasons I don't change it is because I just love how barely anyone gets it right. Whether it's spelling it or saying it out loud, it's just hilarious to me every time I hear someone mention my name or spell my name, and it's always something different. It's like Skolast or Skloast or Schlost, or so many different variations on the same word. So that's about all I have there. Do you think SDK SDY first set will overtake LOB Blue Eyes and Dark Magician again at some point? I'm not really sure about the word again. I've been in the game for a long time. I don't remember any time that those are more than the LOB versions. The gap used to be smaller. Do I expect the gap to get smaller again? To be honest, no, not necessarily. Some people look at population reports and they say, well, it's like half of the LOB pop report, so surely it could be the same or more expensive. But that point about like the security of LOB compared to SDY SDK is a big thing. So a sealed LOB box is very unlikely to contain an LOB Blue Eyes. You've got a 1 in 5 chance. So that's 0.2 Blue Eyes White Dragons per box. And even if you get it, there's no guarantee it's a 10. The same like factory unit, like a sealed brick of Star Deck Yugi Kaiba, has 5 Blue Eyes White Dragons in it. And yeah, they're difficult to grade, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of sealed decks out there. And so there's a lot less security to the value, because if someone comes along and decides to crack a load of those decks, you will get a load of new 10s graded, which is just not the case for LOB. In terms of nostalgia, I can completely see like the argument why people prefer the Star Deck Yugi and Kaiba, but yeah, I think it just doesn't quite match up with the rarity and security aspect. Platinum Blue Eyes or other future masterpieces worth like going up or going down is like the kind of thing. I copied this all into one thing and it didn't do emojis, so I couldn't put the emojis in. But yeah, long term, to be honest, I'm not saying there's no potential. If you look at the Japanese equivalent of the Platinum Blue Eyes that they released a while back, I think both the silver and gold versions of that have actually done very well because they weren't reprinted. But when you buy modern stuff, you always have that additional worry of what if they reprint it. So if I had the Platinum Blue Eyes, and let's say like when it ships in a couple of months, it costs maybe $2,000 on the secondary market, I would for sure just cash in, take that like 1K profit and put it into something old school. Holding the modern stuff is just too high risk for me, and it doesn't have any of the same enjoyment aspect that having old school stuff does. What was the set which made you fall in love with the game? So this is kind of like the one we had earlier. I don't really have an answer to it, sorry. LOB or MRD for sure. I had a ton of both those sets as a kid, but like there's nothing more specific than that in my memory. At what point would you stop and move on to the next chapter? Any endgame in mind? So this is a nice final question. I know a lot of big collectors, long-time investors in TCGs, have that kind of end game that they set out with, or like it's like a number. Let's say they want to reach 1 million or 10 million or 100 million or however big their ambitions might be. To me, I would say my life in general, but also my life in collecting, has never really been like that. I don't look at it in terms of I've got to reach this number and then I'm going to be happy. I always just try and enjoy the ride, and wherever it takes me is fine in a sense, because if you get too caught up in that, then you're never really going to have any satisfaction in your life. If I ever had a number that I thought would be like cool to reach, it would be like that $1 million value mark, and I've already reached and surpassed that. So at this point, it's really not about a numbers game to me. It's always cool to get new stuff in, to grow the collection, stuff like that, but there's no set point where I'm thinking this is where I've got to get to by a certain time point or anything like that. So yeah, I don't really have an end game in mind, but I do think at some point I will probably move on from collecting and sell the majority of what I have, whether that be because I want to buy a nice house or I'm not sure exactly. It's hard to predict the future, but I can definitely imagine, let's say in 20 years time, I'm not still going to be doing this YouTube and Instagram and everything like that. I would be surprised if I'm around anywhere near that long in the hobby, to be honest. So yeah, that is the final question for this Q&A. We've gone through a ton of stuff. It's been a long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it fun, interesting to watch. You learned something maybe. Thank you again, everyone, for 500 subscribers. It's a really cool milestone, which, to be honest, when I started the channel about a year ago, I didn't really think I was ever going to get there. I didn't think I'd still be making videos, to be honest. I thought it would just be a few videos here and there that I wanted to share in terms of like information I had. And then after that, I would probably just leave it again and not make more videos. So yeah, we've come a long way. It's been a fun ride. Hopefully still many more videos to come. But yeah, this is the end of the Q&A, so thank you everyone for watching again. This is Schlost signing out, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.